Hi there, this is Jason Wright, and I am with the lovely and talented
Lindsay Bird Nielson.
And we are going to read for you a short snippet from my new book, The Cross Gardener. Chapter 6, Emma Jane. Emma Jane Elkington was the most beautiful 11-year-old I'd ever seen.
Sandy Hook Elementary School, Strasburg, 5th grade.
Emma Jane sat one desk in front of me and one row to the right. The angle was perfect to gaze at her sweet as Mike and Ike's profile without being detected. On the occasion she turned and caught me staring, I pretended to have buck teeth and chewed on the top of my pencil like a carrot. This made her smile, and that made me smile. And that brought teasing from a boy named Stuart who sat in front of me and saw everything. But Stuart didn't scare me. He was only 10. Besides, my brother Scott was almost positive I could take him in a fist fight. Emma Jane kept smiling at me all through middle school, and I kept smiling back, even when I kissed Jennifer Parker during field day in the library. I wished it were Emma Jane. When I asked Emma Jane to the 8th grade graduation dance, she reminded me she couldn't date until she was 16. So I took Katie What's-Her-Name instead. Katie was very pretty, too, and very blonde, but she didn't smile at me like Emma Jane did. During our first year at Strasburg High School, Emma Jane and I settled into very different camps. We still spoke, and I often rerouted myself through the halls to pass her between classes. But we had different friends, different classes, different clubs, different goals.
Emma Jane was an honor roll student.
I was not.
Emma Jane wanted to be a teacher.
I wanted to grow apples.
Emma Jane was an energetic member of the Christian group Young Life.
I was not.
Emma Jane was very popular.
And I was popular the week I climbed the goalpost and hung James Marshall's jockstrap like a flag. But that popularity faded faster than the black eye James gave me on the bus the next day. I went with a few girls here and there, mostly because I hoped Emma Jane noticed. I never knew for sure she did, but she still had a smile that I swore was reserved for me and me alone. Near the end of our sophomore year, between first and second period, on her 16th birthday, I slipped a note in Emma Jane's locker, asking her to come with me to the drive-in in Stevens City on Saturday night.
During lunch, she returned the favor. Yes to a date. No to the drive-in. She used a tiny smiley face as the point of her exclamation.
I replied immediately on the back of the same piece of paper. Roller skating at Stony Creek? The note was back in my locker again by the time the dismissal bell freed us for the weekend.
Perfect. Call me.
I called that night to arrange the time and offered to pick her up in my father's new quad-cab truck.
I can't ride with you alone, or any boys yet, she said on the phone. But the truck sounds lots of fun. Maybe your dad could drive us?
I'd waited 5 years for a date with Emma Jane, and now my father is going to be our chaperone? No problem. I'll ask. I found him sitting in a rocker on the front porch, and he agreed with an old man wink. I went back to the phone. He says, okay. Pick you up at 7:30?
I need to be home by 9, John.
9? I'd been on dates starting that late. All right. How about 6:30?
Perfect for me. I can't wait.
The way she said it, so pure, so innocent, it made the dark hairs on my arms shoot straight into the air. 2 nights later, I showed up at her door in new Levi's that were so stiff I could barely get out of the truck. I'd also bought a new dress shirt that afternoon, a navy blue button-down collar from JCPenney in Winchester. I wore 4 dabs of cologne I'd sampled at the mall, and a pair of tennis shoes that I'd spent an hour scrubbing dirt from. I expected Emma Jane's dad to meet me at the door with a shotgun and his cleaning cloth. I'd seen it before. But when he opened the door, he simply extended his hand. "Hi, John," he said, and we shook. We'd met before, but I'd never noticed how smooth his hands were. He didn't have the calluses that my own father had. "Good evening, Mr. Elkington. Emma Jane will be right down." "Thank you, sir." "You know this is her first date, yes?" I nodded. "She's been waiting a long time for this night." "So have I thought." "You'll treat her like a lady?" he asked, looking down at me through his reading glasses. "Tonight and every day and night after?" "Well, of course. My father taught me right." He looked from me out to our truck parked on the street. He shot him a 2-fingered wave that could have been mistaken for a peace sign. Father nodded back. "Your father's a good man," Mr. Elkington said. "I know." If either of us said anything else during the next 30 seconds, I sure don't remember it. I only remember how beautiful Emma Jane looked with her hair brushed and held together on top with a red clip.
Her shirt was red too, and her jeans were also Levi's.
But not nearly as tight as most of the girls wore them, or even as tight as mine. "John," Mr. Elkington turned to me, "would you mind waiting with your dad in the truck a moment? She'll be right there." I was probably in the truck before I'd even finished the request. I rolled my window halfway down, and Father and I watched the scene unfold like a drive-in movie with bad speakers outside the car windows that only gave sound every few words or phrases. Mr. Elkington hugged his daughter for the longest time. It looked like he was whispering something, but from my distance, I'd never know just what. He released her, but kept his hands on her arms. He looked at me, then back at Emma Jane, and said something with a serious look of fatherly concern, and she covered her mouth in surprise.
Heavens, no.
"I think," she said. I heard Father snicker next to me in the truck. "What?" "Nothing, son. Nothing at all." He cleared his throat, and we both kept our eyes fixed on the front porch drama.
Emma Jane burst into laughter and then bounced into the house. A moment later, she reappeared on the porch, flung her arms around her dad's neck, kissed him on the cheek, mumbled something else.
I couldn't quite make out.
Then yelled goodbye and scampered down the walk toward the truck. "See you by 9 o'clock. I love you."
Finally, words we didn't have to guess at. As she approached me, I thought she beamed brighter than the headlights on a semi. Radiant, brilliant. I gave her a cheesy grin and waved back. Father nudged me, and I got out of the front seat and left the door open. I helped her in, even though she didn't really need it, and got into the back. As we drove down 81 toward Edinburgh, I listened to Emma Jane and my father make small talk up front.
He told a few jokes, each more funny than the last, and Emma Jane giggled and told a few of her own. They sounded not like an old man and his son's young date, but old friends with mature souls and pure hearts.
I spoke hardly a word. I was comfortable sitting in the back and wondering why Emma Jane made me feel something no other girl ever had.
Later that evening, we skated in a wide, slow circle around the rink, under low lights and a spinning disco ball. Faith Hill sang "Breathe."
Emma Jane reached over and took my hand in hers. I didn't say it, but I knew then that I loved her, and I knew I always would. I prayed she'd love me and the orchard too, and I prayed the orchard would love her back.